All right, hello again, 8-9. So in this video, we're just going to go over what a percentage actually is, how to convert it to a decimal, and how to find the percentage of a number. All right, so the word percent actually means per hundred. So whenever you have a number that's a percentage, you have that number out of 100. Okay, it's so for example, if I have 32%, that's the same as saying I have 32 pieces out of 100. All right, so 32 over 100 is the same thing as 32%. All right, another way we could say 32 over 100 is we could say it is 32 hundredths. All right, which tells me as a decimal, it would be 0.32. Okay, and the reason I know that is because the first placeholder after the decimal point is called the tenths, and the second placeholder is called the hundredths. So if I have 32 hundredths, I have 0.32. Okay, as you can see here, in order to have 0.32, I have to have 32 hundredths. All right, now if you're very, very astute, very smart at seeing patterns, you may have noticed that there's actually a little trick you can do that's really easy that will convert a percentage to a decimal. So going back to our 32% example, what I do is I pretend I'm writing I just pretend 32 is just a whole number, okay? If 32 were a whole number, the decimal would go right after the 2. All right, to convert it to a percentage, or sorry, to a decimal rather, what I would do is I would move this decimal place 2 digits to the left. Okay, and I would have to put a 0 in front of that decimal point. Notice that after I move that 2 to the left, I have 0.32. Okay, so that's just another way of showing you that 32% is the same as 0.32. All right. Now, if I'm trying to find the percentage of a number, the first thing I have to do is I have to take the percentage that I'm finding and convert it to a decimal. All right, and while we're on that topic, another way that you can convert your percentage to a decimal is just to divide it by 100. But for all intents and purposes, I really do recommend you try to get used to using the shortcut where you just move the decimal 2 places over. All right, another thing I should mention is if you have a single digit percentage, so for example, let's say you're being asked to find 8% of something and you wanted to convert that 8% to a decimal, the trick works, but you'll see that if I put my decimal place after the 8 and then I move it 2 spaces to the left, I end up with a blank space. All right, when that happens when you're doing this trick, just fill any blank space with a 0. Okay, and always put a 0 in front of the decimal, the decimal point after you've moved it as well. Okay. All right, so 8% as a decimal would be 0.08, not 0.8. Okay, 0.8 is actually 80%. All right, so try to be aware of that and try to make that distinction. Okay, try to know the difference between the two. Okay, so let's finally do an actual example here. I'm going to go ahead and do this example. I'm going to find 42% of 400. All right, now in math, typically, not always, mind you, but most of the time, whenever you see an expression that has the word of, that means you're going to end up multiplying something. All right, and we're going to see that that is the case here as well. So for a question like this where you're finding a percentage of a number, first thing you're going to do, take your percentage, convert it to a decimal. All right, so I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to do my little trick. I'm going to move that decimal 2 to the left. Okay, and I'm going to put a 0 in front. All right, so that tells me that, and I'll just put a little slash mark through the percentage and erase the original dot there. All right, once that dot is moved over, I have 0.42. So now I'm going to take that 0.42. I'm going to times it by the number I'm taking the percentage of. In this case, it's 400. All right, now I'm just going to pull up my calculator here. Okay, now in the calculator, if I go 0.42 and then times that by 400, then push equals, that tells me my answer is 168. All right, let's try one more. All right, this time, let's do 77% of let's make it 700 for this one. So I guess, yeah, this math question was brought to you by the number 7. All right, so just like before, I'm going to convert my percentage to a decimal. All right, so I'm going to pretend it's a whole number, put a dot there after the second 7. Okay, and that dot's going to move 2 spaces to the left. I'm going to put 0 in front, erase the original dot, and put a slash through the percentage sign because it's not a percent anymore. Now it's a decimal. All right, so 0.77 is the decimal I'm going to need to find my answer this time. I'm going to go 0.77, and I'm going to times that by 700 because that's the number I'm finding the percentage of. Okay, and let's see what we get when we put that in the calculator. So 0.77 times 700 equals 539. All right, so that is how you do a question where you're finding a percentage of a number. All right, now it is your turn to show off your math superpowers. Go ahead and complete the finding a percentage of a number worksheet that you were given. And happy mathing to you. We'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.